Hey guys, Mercury 40 horse, 1984, in the crossover years between 83 and the 85, where everything kind of changed. So I'm doing my water pump annually, and looking for while I'm doing this, I'm checking out the original. This is the new shifter cam selector. So this is the original one that was on, and of course it's sitting on there like this, down in the lower place, and not thinking, not knowing, everything was shifted into neutral. Most guys didn't think it'd matter much, but as long as everything stayed the same, but it does. Most guys like reverse. It is possible to do it in forward. Don't do it in neutral. So while I'm doing the water pump, pull this off, do a check. Okay. Look down here. Everything looks okay. Washer. And you just grab it. And we'll put it back on. Is that right or is it not? Well, check all over the internet, check in the download the manual. There's nothing about the cam shifter selector, right? And the problem is with it, there is no grooved tooth to set the exact position. So it can go here, it can go here, 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 rotate 360, and your guess is as good as mine, especially if you weren't paying attention where it came off of in the first place, but you figured you were in either forward, neutral, or reverse, so as long as nothing moves, everything should be good to go. But one little tooth out, and that's all it takes to create that. That wasn't there when I pulled the water pump. I put it back in, go take her for a test and tune. She's not come. She'll go into forward, but she won't go into neutral. It was tough getting it into neutral. You're out floating around in the water, and she would not go into reverse. Give it a little throttle, the whole back end kicks up. So back to the shop. Let's figure it out. Again, we go through all the possibilities trying to set it up. There's no reference to where this thing should be set. The best I could get in the manual, in the factory manual, there's a little picture that shows it in this forward position. But the problem is, when it's actually in gear, that position, once it's locked in with the propeller, you move the propeller, and that moves ever so slightly. So the adjusting can be anywhere it has to be, given the position of the propeller. And it's got to be right, or that happens. And then you're pooched. This happens to be factory original, as Joe over at Haney Marine, awesome guy, great place to go. So I go over there and I ask him, how do I set this up? Where's the orientation? So he explained to me it has to be in the forward position. He does it in the forward. A lot of guys do it in the reverse. And it should be orientated, as the picture says, towards the front. Now, there's three positions: forward, neutral, and reverse. To make sure you have it in the right position, you have to move this around. It's almost impossible to do with your fingers, no matter how. And the other problem is, this is soft metal. Okay, so with your vice grips, ever so gently, I put it on there just to get it going. Don't put some paper around it at the very least. I was almost instantly getting some gnarling on the splines. So put some put some paper on it, and there you can get your, now, that is now, it wasn't forward, it's now cammed over. And now, you start getting this clicking on the prop. Okay? No good. Now, when it goes back into the forward position, ever so slightly, carefully, because it doesn't lock in properly, it will spring back. So cam it back over into the forward. Everything stay put, please. Three-handed octopus filming. You want to get it back over. Okay, now she doesn't want to go because the prop is moved ever so slightly. So adjust the prop. It's locking. Okay. She's not backing up. There we go. Holding the prop, shifting that over, gentle touch on the spline, and now we're locked. Shaft turning, prop turning. Now we're in the forward position. She just clicked out. This is the funky part. Okay, it doesn't take much to throw it over and throw this prop out. We're back in the locked position. Now that's turning, that's locked in, and this is just floating on the forward lock position. You touch it like that, go that way just a little bit, and she'll cam over, and then prop will start clicking all bad. So back to the cam and the positioning. Now the problem with this is that this can be out one tooth, and that's all it takes. It's supposed to be, this shoulder is supposed to be aligned with that. It'll click over some more. This one's bung, so if I wanted to grab onto it, I could. So on with the new stainless steel one. Cam it in the forward position, and again, there's no indexing spline, right? On most splines there's a fat one or a keyway. This thing can go in anyway. And you see how it's not dropping down smoothly? That's just, I'm not stupid. Very soft metal, very soft metal. So be careful, keep a rag on there, even with the vice grips. They have a special little tool that goes on there and fits the spline. Didn't want to pay $100 just to cam this up, so be careful with the rag and the vice grips and you're good to go. Now the problem is you have to synchronize this position with that hole right in there. Okay, and the splines don't necessarily match up. So when you put this up in there, on top of making sure all this is all aligned and slides in, and your exhaust port fits in, okay, if this is off, just a fraction. You're hooked. Okay? Now Joe said you can go back up in there and turn that, but you can't, right? Because that female receiving cam that goes over this goes up the shaft and locks on to the shifter cam that the throttle cable. Now, these all have to be synchronized because this has to be set in the proper position, shoulder forward, spline in the correct position. Be very careful, it doesn't take much to cam it back over, especially when you're trying to fit it in. You can stuff it up there, and with the slightest little jerk, this thing will kick over. It's out of position. You'll be able to get it in forward position. You might be able to get it in neutral, but no way you're going to get it in reverse. So then, now, there's the shifter lever. Okay, the lever on there goes down, and that goes into the female spline that goes into the male spline, and these all have to be synchronized. Now this in there attaches to this lower cable here. Okay, and this has the barrel assembly behind here for threading in and out. So the way you have to do it, forget about that down there. Just make sure that that is in the forward position and not cammed over. Get back up into here. Get your barrel out. Pull that barrel out. Release your throttle or your shifter cable under your throttle cable. Get a screwdriver and pop that out. Now this will free float. Okay, this is being locked down by this shifter cable, which this shifter cable attaches into that lever. We need that lever to float. That's the only way we're going to be able to adjust that female spline to match up with that. So pull this off, release that, and get that to float. That will float backwards and forwards. Forward on this is forward. This here moves back to neutral and then reverse about here. So knock this off, free that up first before you go to install that. Once the cam's set down there, this is free floating here. And now what I did to hold this up, one-man operation, take a bungee cord, bring it around. This will hold it up. You can now move this up and down and it'll hold itself. And you can work with it. Give you some play, enough play to get in. Align your exhaust tube. Get your water pipe up, because this thing flops around. It does go in, it finds its hole, right? And then you've got to align right in there your female spline. This will now move because your upper linkage is free floating. So release your shifter cable. That lever will now free float and move this around. So loosen this all up first, then do your insertion. I figured it out. Only took 2 days, and downloading a manual that only showed a picture of this in that position with no explanation where it should be and whether or not it was out just one tooth, because from the side shot it could have looked like this It could have been that position or that position. So, and remember, soft metal on these splines, guys. Be very gentle. If you gnarl them up, this will stick. Get a nice little point file, take the knurl down, and keep some grease on there, and you should be good to go. Okay guys, happy boating. Less headaches, more drinking.